everyone, and welcome to episode 118 of Piv's NXT Point of View podcast. My name is Bill Pivets. So this week's episode was highlighted by the Nikki Cross Asuka Last Woman Standing match. We also had the debut of Mauro Ranallo on commentary, taking the place of Tom Phillips. I honestly wish it was just him and Nigel on commentary. Percy Watson does absolutely nothing for me, and I don't think he adds anything to the commentary team. But before we got into the main event, we started off the show with the Velveteen Dream versus Ho-Ho Loon. Loon landed some kicks and some strikes, but really no effect on Dream. Dream landed a big boot off the ropes and a jackhammer before winning with his diving elbow. Yeah, I'm not really sold on this. I'm not buying it. I don't like it at all. It was whatever. I was bored during the match, and I think Dream's entrance was longer than the actual match itself. A random reporter was in the car with Asuka, asking her thoughts on the match tonight. The car stopped as Nikki Cross jumped on the windshield and clawed at it, and then she went to pull Asuka out of the car before being separated by security. Nikki, unstable, unhinged, whatever you want to call it, and she wants to get to Asuka more than anything else. A little later, Asuka was shown kicking a heavy bag, pretending that it was Nikki Cross. I'm assuming, at least. We then got a recap of Itami's aggression towards Lorcan 3 weeks ago. William Regal was in his office with Authors of Pain and Heavy Machinery. He said that Heavy Machinery will get a tag title shot in 2 weeks, and Regal suggested that the Authors of Pain get well prepared for that match. Second match, Hideo Itami versus Oney Lorcan. As soon as the bell rang, Lorcan ran at Hideo with a huge uppercut and landed some chops in the corner. Somehow, Itami was bleeding from his nose, and the announcers were playing it up like he had a broken nose. The referee was checking on him a little bit. Medical team was on there trying to stop the bleeding. The referee ended up calling the match, and Hideo walked up the ramp. Lorcan followed him a little later. We got a lengthy video package for Roderick Strong and Bobby Roode's match, starting with Roode's personal story that he showed a few weeks ago, and then Bobby Roode's insults towards him and their little scrap last week at the photo shoot. Hideo walked back out after that, no music. Lorcan followed him, he got his music, and Hideo caught him with a running boot and nice kicks in the corner. He then placed Lorcan over the top and landing a diving knee to the back of his head. Lorcan came back with 2 running uppercuts in the blockbuster for a near fall. By the way, this was a new match, and they kind of restarted it. Lorcan dodged the GTS, but Hideo hit a tornado hangman and a diving clothesline from the top rope. Lorcan countered the GTS again, but this time he tweaked his knee. He didn't want the referee to stop the match. Hideo gave him a chance, picked him up, but he said no. Hideo picked him up for the GTS and got the win. Afterwards, Hideo called out Kassius Ohno. Ohno eventually came out. The two spoke. We really couldn't hear what they were saying. Nikki Cross then appeared, yelling at both men, and Sanity's Alexander Wolf and Killian Dane ran out and attacked those two. Alexander Wolf cut a promo saying that they have to end all these lies and false friendships, and they would do so with chaos. Going back to the match, it was fun. I liked it a lot, the fact that they came out there. Hideo had 2 cotton balls stuck in his nose, so he had to breathe out of his mouth, which can be very devastating as far as your cardio goes. The announcers were debating the ethics of Hideo hitting the GTS as Lorcan was hurt, and Nigel was playing it up that he gave him a chance to stop the match, and he actually gave him a chance to get up on his own. So there was no harm, no foul there. Great storytelling. I like this a lot, and I think it's going to be a match between Hideo and Kassius Ohno at Brooklyn. And I expected a tag match to be announced eventually between those two and Sanity. Turns out they announced it during the main event that tag match will take place next week. So after all that, Nikki Cross was already in the ring. Asuka made her entrance, and they two got formal introductions as the Last Woman Standing match got started. Quick offense by both women. Nikki caught Asuka between the ring and the apron. She then made a pile of steel chairs on the outside. They teased suplexes onto the stairs early, but Nikki threw Asuka into the steel steps. Asuka returned the favor to the other pair of steps. There was a small ECW chant as Asuka placed a garbage can on Nikki and kicked it multiple times, and then jumped off the top rope for a missile dropkick. Nikki hit a reverse DDT on the apron. Asuka came back, tossed Nikki from the top onto the pile of chairs that she made in the ring, and Nikki returned the favor with the back suplex, and we got to our second commercial break of the match. Back from that, they no-sold some moves before Nikki hit a fisherman neckbreaker. She then picked up Asuka, breaking the count, and then hit 3 more neckbreakers. Asuka still managed to get to her feet there. Asuka went for the suplex from the apron onto the pile of chairs that Nikki made, but Nikki Cross countered, powerbombed her, and it looked like Asuka hit her head on the hard part of the ramp at the corner. It looked pretty bad. She immediately grabbed the back of her head. Once Asuka got up, they fought up the ramp a little bit. Asuka connected with a hip attack off the ramp. She went to kick Nikki, but Nikki ducked, and she ended up kicking one of the stage lights next to the announcers. Cross pulled out a ladder, set it up next to the announce table. Asuka got up from the table that she was laying on. Both women were fighting on top of the ladder. The announcers pretty much ran away at this point. We had no commentary as Asuka superplexed Nikki from the top of the ladder through the announce table. Both women were laying motionless for the most part. Asuka got up at like 9.5. Nikki remained on the floor, and Asuka is still your NXT Women's Champion. Great match. There was great storytelling here as well. Nikki wanting to get rid of Asuka, not just win the title. She wanted to destroy her. Asuka coming back as the fighting champion, getting up with everything that Nikki threw at her, literally, including the ladder. With Nikki losing, though, I think this makes way for Ember Moon to be the next challenger for Asuka's title, probably at TakeOver Brooklyn. But with the injuries and the way that Ember Moon's been booked recently since coming back, it's going to take a lot for her to be a viable contender for Asuka's title. I just don't see that happening, and maybe if things were different, I could see Ember Moon defeating her at Brooklyn, but at this point, I don't see why Asuka needs to lose the title. Maybe in a rematch, or another woman comes up, maybe whoever wins the women's tournament, whatever the case is, maybe that person can defeat Asuka, but I don't see Ember Moon as the one to do it right now, at least. Overall, it was a good week. I'm indifferent on the Velveteen Dream. The Lorcan Hideo Itami stuff was entertaining, and I like the build that it's going to something bigger. Hopefully a match between Ohno and him at TakeOver Brooklyn. And you just heard my thoughts on the main event. Really good women's match. WWE pointed this out, and so did a few people on Twitter, that the women on Raw, SmackDown, and NXT main evented their respective shows all this week. So that's great, because those rosters are good, great even. And there's great action, great storytelling by all the women. And they're just as good as the men in this day and age as far as the matches and the moves they could do in the ring. So good on them to put them all in the main event this week. Next week is actually pretty big. We have the Hideo Itami, Kassius Ohno versus Sanity tag team match, and the NXT championship match between Bobby Roode and Roderick Strong. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in. Follow me on Twitter at bpiv_sports. Like, comment, subscribe to the show on YouTube, and I'll be back next week with episode 119. Peace.